If you like the Young Turks podcast, I think you'll love a lot of the podcasts on the TYT network. Old School, it's one of my favorites, one of the favorites for a lot of the listeners. Please check that out, subscribe, share it. That makes a big difference, and give it a 5-star rating. Thank you. Drop it. All right, power panel. Of course, Cenk Uygur, Iadarola, Nando Vila. Fun for everybody. We've got lots of doctored videos for you guys.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun. If you're wondering, when do I think of how to say drop it? Do I think about it all week, all day? No, about a second before we do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm so psyched about this rally on June 8th that I'm doing in Iowa. That now that we're doing, JD Schultz is going to join us. Almost beat Steve King last time. We'll beat him this time. Ojeda is coming. Allison Hortson is coming. You all are coming. Yesterday we got a comment from one of you guys that are coming from Bogota, Colombia.
Whoa!
When you guys come, we're now planning new other fun things for you to do together. Okay, so I told you a little bit like Woodstock kind of atmosphere here for progressives. Although a more aggressive version of it. So we are going to come out fighting, and so don't miss it. Don't miss it. tyt.com/rally. All right, we got a big show ahead. John, take it away.
Okay, so much to get to. Let's start off with some fun, or what passes for fun in American politics. At least 2 videos of Nancy Pelosi have been shared pretty widely by conservative media over the past day. And in both cases, you have videos that are either deceptively edited or digitally manipulated to make the Speaker of the House look either drunk or senile. We're gonna show you those videos, partially so that you'll be able to identify this sort of practice in the future, but understand these have both been manipulated in different ways. Here is the first. This is a video that has been literally slowed down.
We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country. We want to give this president the opportunity to do something historic for our country.
So credit there to the Washington Post for mashing up the version that's been going around initially on social media sites on Facebook, some conservative watchdog groups. Those are sites that you can trust. They verify these videos after they manipulate them. And it appears that video has been slowed down to about 75% of its initial speed, had the audio manipulated a little bit to make it seem as if she's slurring her words.
All right, so first of all, never trust a conservative, but the American media takes a little while to catch up. But here, give them credit, they did get to it pretty quickly. Washington Post, most credit for identifying it first, and now it's been spread around. But they never internalized the lesson. They continue to be like, well, I guess conservative outlets are just as legitimate as anything else. No, they're not. They lie on purpose all the time. Now, in terms of these videos, you can slow down any video to make someone look bad. And you could take little snippets of people's speeches and take the little parts that they stumble or they pause and make them look bad. Super easy to do that. So you could do it to anyone, but why do the Republicans do it? For 2 reasons. One, it's projection. Donald Trump has clear and obvious problems with his mental stability. and so he doesn't know how to speak the English language. He often, and when he's on Twitter, his misspellings are outrageous. He'd have trouble passing 3rd grade. And I can go on, and we will. We'll show you videos later in the program from Donald Trump that have not been altered, okay? So what do? They attack on their weakness. So they did this to Hillary Clinton. They said, oh, she has an aneurysm. Now, some people still believe that. I don't know if you know this. She doesn't have one, hasn't had one in 3 years. Okay, it's not remotely true, but they're like, aha. And then once they plant that seed in people's head, then everything turns into confirming it. Hillary Clinton stumbled getting into her car. We knew it, aneurysm, right? Now, from here on out, whatever Nancy Pelosi does, people will be like, right? Certainly all the right wing and all the people that they influence, including innocent family members that they'll be talking to over dinner, etc. So this is a very common practice to smear people on the right, and I wish the rest of the media would learn this lesson for the 800th time that is their tactic. They're not looking for a fair fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember what was the woman who was the head of Acorn where the James O'Keefe got like a snippet of it and she was fired by the Obama administration.
Yeah,
remember that?
Remember.
Yeah,
Shirley
Sherrod, exactly. Like this has been going on for a while, and like you said, like no one has learned the lesson after 800 times, right? Like we still fall for it almost every single time.
Yeah, and by the way, to give you a sense of how common that is, Acorn was different. Then you had Shirley Sherrod.
Right.
And the Obama administration panicked and fired her because they said, well, what is Glenn Beck going to say on Fox News? And then they went on to do it to Planned Parenthood and over and over and over again to, I think, Mary Landrieu down in Louisiana, same group, Veritas, et cetera, that did that. And still people are like, oh, well, okay. Mainstream media is like, I don't know, I'm gonna call it even between progressives and the right wing.
I think next time they should speed up Nancy Pelosi's speech instead of slow it down, make her sound like a member of Alvin and the Chipmunks. So if you see a video of Nancy Pelosi speaking like Alvin and the Chipmunks, it's probably doctored.
It might be. She's on cocaine.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about the people spreading this in a second, but you've got a second video.
Well, I just want to give you, we're gonna give the video in 1 second, but I do want to let you know that one version, as of just last night, let alone all the views that it's continued to get, on Facebook got 2 million views, but was shared more than 45,000 times, and 23,000 comments of critical thinkers saying things like she's drunk and a babbling mess. So this is the video that is literally manipulated. They brought it into editing software, they slowed it down, they knew exactly what they were trying to do, and they did it. But regardless, and despite many times over the past couple of years saying that they're gonna take fake news seriously, Facebook is pretty much like, meh. They say that they'll downgrade its visibility in users' news feeds and attach a link to a third-party fact-checking site pointing out that the clip is misleading. As a result, although it's less likely to be seen by accident, the doctored video will continue to rack up views. Facebook only took that action after the Washington Post launched inquiries to them. So they will not take that off, even though it is, I don't know what is a clear example of fake news. I mean, it's not a deep fake technically, but it achieves the same goal. Now, Deputy Chief of Staff for Pelosi, Drew Hamill, said we're not going to comment on this sexist trash. But what's interesting about this, before we turn to the deceptively edited ones, is a lot of the most high-profile conservatives at least waited long enough that they didn't spread this one. So Donald Trump didn't tweet this one out. Fox Business didn't use this one. It takes a certain type of brainless conservative to actually get caught by this one. And that's the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, who did tweet out that video and then took it down rapidly. And then he did sort of an apology the next morning with this tweet saying, this apology for a video which is allegedly is a caricature of an otherwise halting speech pattern, she should stop first and apologize for, saying the president needs an intervention, And attached to that tweet was a gif of, I believe, basketball players celebrating on the sidelines of a game.
Now, if Nancy Pelosi had done that, people would be like, that's it, she's lost her mind, it's over, it's obvious, she's mentally incompetent, we gotta go. There'd be a whole huge brouhaha, Fox News will talk about it 24/7. Now look, to be fair, there's criticism of Giuliani, but what is that tweet? I mean, I don't know what any of that is. I don't know, has he taken it down? Because
I'm not sure.
I don't think he did.
I just saw it like right before we went on air. I just saw it again.
It has to be a joke, though.
No. I believe that both Rudy and Trump are losing their minds. Some sort of dimension. There is no such thing as a apology. There's no such thing, and that sentence makes no sense. This is an apology for a video which allegedly is a caricature of an otherwise halting speech pattern. This is a halting speech pattern in a tweet that you typed out. So no, it is classic projection. So when Fox Business started talking about the other video, who was the guy talking about it? Greg Jarrett. Now they're having a conversation about whether Nancy Pelosi is a drunk. Okay, hilarious, ridiculous, preposterous. Greg Jarrett is an actual drunk.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he got arrested in an airport, incoherent drunk. Had a wrestling match with a cop. What happened to Blue Lives Matter? Okay, and so basically assaulted a police officer and was like, "Do you know who I am?" kind of action, etc. But and he had to go to rehab. Now, if you're a progressive, you're supposed to feel bad about that. And under normal circumstances, I would. Not under this circumstance. Not when you're going to smear someone for what you actually are. And the other person on the panel with Greg Jarrett was Ed Rollins. who is borderline senile. He's 76 years old. It's not about age. He's like blah, 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 and can't work in politics anymore. So those two are claiming that Pelosi's too old and too drunk. I mean, that is Republican 101.
Yeah, file it under projection. Do you want to play that video?
Yeah.
So Fox Business, after Fox had already, like an hour earlier, they were like, hey, there are fake videos going around of Nancy Pelosi. Now, again, they did not use the one we just showed you, but they did use this.
We had a little took a little longer on the floor. Custody of the border. Everyone, he started sending signals. The U.S., Mexico, Canada. If that's not the accurate character, some people call it after NAFTA. Some call it NAFTA 2.0. Working together to make past that. Not. If we're the three things. We're very busy people.
Okay, now we did not edit that. That was everything that played on Fox Business channel, just a reminder. And that is effectively about 30 seconds that was culled out a few seconds at a time from a 21-minute speech.
Yeah, so now I don't want to encourage people, but boy, could you do that to us? Of course, when you're speaking without a prompter, you will have many moments where you pause, stutter, repeat yourself, say something slightly wrong. You can do it to anybody. Wait till you get a load of what we're gonna do to Donald Trump later in the show. Okay, but that one is not altered, but it is edited. How long did you say, 21 minutes?
I believe her initial address was 21 minutes.
Yeah, you take Trump in 21 minutes? Are you kidding me? Giuliani for 21 minutes? You could have a video that is 10 times that length of totally incoherent talk from them. But the problem is, once people see the video, and they repeated, obviously, the 2-3 mistake, so it makes it seem like she's doing it over and over again, it emphasizes it. Now, there's progressives online that I've seen like, but Cenk, you have to confess the shit. No, I don't have to confess anything. And look, there is no more credible person than me on this because I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. I think she is blocking all progressive priorities. I got no love for her. And I'm the one who just recently wrote an op-ed in The Hill saying she's not a progressive and should not be trusted. But this is totally unfair, and I will defend her 100% on this.
Yeah, we were talking about before the show how mad I am at the right that they have forced me to defend her in this way because
right.
There are so many reasons to oppose her. They just don't happen to have to do with her like downing Guinness before she gives addresses.
Yeah, facts matter, reality matters. So if you want to attack her on policy or principles, that makes sense. If you want to attack her on nonsense, do not feed the right-wing trolls. That is a terrible idea.
It's just so depressing because all this stuff, I mean, it's only gonna get worse, right? As technology improves, as the video editing software improves, you're gonna be able to see stuff that looks really, really real and is hard to figure out if it's actually been doctored or not. And it just contributes to this general kind of ambient feeling of unreality that we exist in these days. That's just kind of the 2019, 2018 world that is just the kind of.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
Thing that we exist in constantly, and it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to sort of poke your head out and take a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, so Nando, that's such a great point, because I had a guest on the program a little while ago, and he talked about the idea of manufacturing doubt.
Yeah.
It was in the context of climate change, but he referred back to how the tobacco companies invented this, basically, where they said, well, we don't have to convince people that smoking is good for them. We just have to create doubt as to whether it's harmful to them.
Yeah.
And so then they'll call it a draw and they'll keep on smoking. Same thing that the oil companies did do and are in the middle of doing with climate change. And that is what Republicans do to their opponents. So now with Nancy Pelosi, they've created doubt. And they manufacture doubt, and then we live in this alternate reality where you don't know what's real and what's not real anymore. And that way, when they lie, their lies then get equated to the truth. Boom, they manufacture doubt, exactly what they want.
And the way the media is structured to sort of deal with any situation is to kind of play both sides, right? So as long as you just create another side, no matter how preposterous it is, you will at least get a draw, like you said. You at least plant the seed of doubt in like some reporter in the New York Times' mind, and then he'll feel the need to sort of pay lip service at least to this new thing that just been invented.
Yeah.
And as long as you kind of do that, you at least dull the sort of real narrative of what's going on. You kind of take away a little bit of its edge, and that's all they need, really.
Yeah. So Nando, another great point. Look, I've got to double down on it, because this is why the media's obsession with neutrality actually hurts the real standard of objectivity.
Yeah.
Objectivity says this is true and this is not true. These are facts and these are not facts. Neutrality says he said, she said. So in an environment where the mainstream media, unfortunately, has fallen into this fetish of neutrality, that actually gives an advantage to lies and to anyone who wants to manufacture doubt.
Yeah.
That's actually if you wanted a media that was nearly perfect for you, you'd want one obsessed with neutrality if you're in the business of lying and creating doubt. And that's exactly where we are.
Yeah, there's a documentary about the concept of hypernormalization.
That's a great doc.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And sort of in this area. And by the way, at the same time that you're casting doubt on everything, and you're getting your fans and your supporters, your cultists, however you want to say it, to believe more and more brazen lies. That might not work unless the right had been conducting for literally decades now a movement by Fox News and by conservative think tanks to undermine all of the sort of traditional arbiters of the truth and expertise in academia and the media, and it's all fake news and you can't trust the scientists and all of that.
But even in that New York Times sort of hit piece on Bernie Sanders' foreign policy that came out last week, the sort of guy that they quoted to sort of give the other side to Bernie's positions on Central America in the 1980s was Otto Reich, right? A guy who was, part of the Reagan administration's, frontal team in Latin America at the time, right? One of the perpetrators of all these things. And all he has to do is kind of provide the other side, and that's enough cover for the New York Times reporting team to be able to just like say, okay, we got both sides. And the effect of that is to obscure the truth, not reveal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think we should, have a conversation about the Contra point of view.
Yeah, exactly.
And and if you're, ran a death cult down there, I don't know.
Yeah.
He said, she said, right?
You want to turn to Trump now?
Yeah, let's do it. We got time.
Okay, so the right has been spreading videos of Nancy Pelosi that have been doctored to make it look like she is slurring her words. Well, let's say you wanted to do that with Donald Trump. What would that look like? It would probably look something like this.
If we brought George Washington here and we said, we have George Washington, the Democrats would vote against him, just so you understand. And he may have had a bad past, who knows, He may have had some, I think, accusations made. Didn't he have a couple of things in his past? And finally, I asked the leaders of the region, political and religious, Israeli and Palestinian, Jewish and Christian and Muslim, to join us in the noble quest for lasting peace. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much. Have you ever seen? They do great, they're great. They hit the last two and everyone goes crazy. Then they go back for an encore, right? And they don't hit it. And they leave, everyone leaves. They said, that wasn't a very good concert, was it? Let's go. Prime Minister and I also discussed ways we can deepen our trade relationship based on the core principles of fairness and reciprocity. Into our country. We appreciate it very much, Tim Apple. But
We didn't include the oranges.
Oh, there's so many more.
There's so many more.
Yeah. So, look, we edited those together, but we didn't alter it. We didn't change anything he said. He actually said, "God bless the United States." He actually did say, "Courage, principles." You can rewind the tape and watch it. I know there's theories about his dentures falling out or whatever.
I'm sure that that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's probably why Nancy Pelosi is in a position where you can slow it down. And it sounds like that. She might be experiencing the same thing.
I have no idea. All I know is that Democrats don't do this on a regular basis. And Barack Obama would never, ever tweet out something like that. And then on the other hand, Trump, who knows that he has slurred his words and said incredibly strange, bizarre, nonsensical things. It's like, oh yeah, look at Pelosi. I got her. I got her.
This is a similar sort of thing I thought was happening to Obama. You'd watch videos that had clearly been slowed down, but no, he just spoke at that speed.
Yes, he was a very slow speaker.
JR can attest to that. Okay, you want to move on to the last thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have shown you a video of Donald Trump sounding a little bit ridiculous. Let's go to a mashup of some more stupid comments that when you put them back to back makes him look pretty bad too.
Well, number one, I'm not stupid, okay? I can tell you that.
I said, how does it do it in fights? And how do they do in fights with the F-35? I said, we do very well. You can't see it. You can't see it. So it's hard to fight a plane that you can't see, right? The enemy cannot see it. Even if it's right next to it, it can't see it.
They're stealth. You can't see them. Other than that, they're easy to beat. It's incredible equipment.
Brand new coal mine where they're going to take out clean coal, meaning they're taking out coal, they're going to clean it.
Department of Environmental, the DEP is killing us.
2 Corinthians, right? 2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game. And I watch our police and our firemen down on 7-Eleven, down at the World Trade Center right after it came down.
This is an island surrounded by water, big water, ocean water.
This is a tough hurricane. One of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Well, number one, I'm not stupid, okay? I can tell you that right now.
That's your extraordinarily stable genius. If you have to repeatedly tell people that you are a stable genius, there's some chance you're neither. So unlike the right wing, we do not have to manipulate the videos. So that is the real president of the United States. He is a buffoon of the highest order. That's why he lashes out at people like Nancy Pelosi, and that's why they have to alter the tapes or manipulate how they edit the tapes. With Trump, you just let it roll. And look, we didn't even get into the oranges of those tapes. If we get into those oranges, we might find out that the World Cup Series champions Red Sox are not what we expected, and in fact, there might even be coups against them from the Marine Corps. Okay, all things he said on Twitter and his White House as well, and we haven't even gotten into Kofefe and Akoshlishans that he just did the other day. So yes, he has real and significant issues with mental stability. That is among the reasons he ironically lashes out at people like Nancy Pelosi and questions their stability.
Yeah, and of course, while those mashups are, for a person that wants there to be an intelligent, stable person in the White House, those are scary. Far scarier the mashups of him encouraging violence and things like that, talking about immigrants and everything. That could be far scarier. The only other point I want to make is, this is sort of a normal play for the Republicans to do this to Nancy Pelosi. Look, no matter who is in the leadership of the Democratic Party, they're going to attack them. They did it with Barack Obama. If it's Bernie, it's going to be Bernie. But there's a sort of special place in the heart of a lot of conservatives and especially conservative activists to demonize women who are Democrats. There's nothing they like more than that. And honestly, if you're a regular Republican fan out there, you might be a little bit sad that Clinton's gone. You really liked hating Clinton, and now they've got it for you. They've got some Ilhan Omar, maybe some AOC, and Nancy Pelosi, she even looks a little bit like Clinton.
She's the classic. I remember in the 2014 midterm elections, basically 99% of the ads Republicans ran across the country were just attacking Nancy Pelosi. Vote for this guy to get Nancy Pelosi that limousine liberal communist from San Francisco and her San Francisco values. That's what they kept on saying. Get her out of the speakership because that's our #1 priority. That was like the #1 target.
I guarantee you, no matter how many times the Pelosi videos are disproven, you will hear about them for the rest of the time. Going into each election, every time Pelosi's in the news, the right wing will come out and go, I remember, oh, she's senile, she's drunk, she's this. Because they're impervious to facts. And that's why they think the DEP is killing us.
I wish she was as left wing as the conservatives think she is. That'd be great.
That would be awesome. That would be fantastic.
They get our hopes up, and then we actually see what Nancy Pelosi says, and then we all get disappointed.
And final thing is, to John's point, and we say this all the time on the Young Turks, is it is a common theme with the media. The double standard is maddening. If Nancy Pelosi had said in a rally she was doing, yeah, you should punch Republicans in the face, and I'll pay your legal bills if you do. If she had said, hey, I remember the good old days when we used to take out Republicans in stretchers, and constantly encouraged people to deck them, hit them. If she bragged about how a Democratic congressman had assaulted a reporter, and she was so proud of him for assaulting a reporter, which is what Trump did in Montana. I mean, every Republican would say there's no decorum, there's no values, there's no morality, it's outrageous. And all the media would agree and pile on, and then the Democrats would agree and pile on, and whoever said that would be eliminated from the public discourse. But on the right wing side, there's never any accountability. Trump is president, and he's lost no Republican support over this. No Republican support. Rudy Giuliani, his lawyer, is even more unstable than he is. Still no consequences. Ben Carson, God knows what he's doing at HUD. I mean, he was an absolute mess the other day, talking about, are you asking about Oreos? Right? And there's never any consequences for the right wing, and the band marches on. And all I want is the media to acknowledge it is not even. One side has significant issues and constantly lies about the other side. But they'll never say that. They're like, oh, that's not neutral. I can't say it, that's not neutral. That also isn't journalism. Neutrality isn't journalism, objectivity is. All right, we gotta take a break. A lot more when we come back. All right, back on the Young Turks. All right, going to tell you about a couple of quick things here. First of all, the crazy folks at shoptyt.com with another outrageous sale, free shipping, not authorized.
Going rogue.
But it's got to be orders over $100. Okay, well that's a little better. So it's a Memorial Day sale.
Yeah, put that in the edit.
Oh, there you go. There.
Put that in the edit.
For only 3 days.
So it ends on Monday. So 5/27 is the last day of it. ShopTYT.com. You can get your TYT Army T-shirts. Bring them to Iowa. You can get your Very Stable Genius shirts in honor of Donald Trump, or maybe the dishonor of Donald Trump. All right, and then on Tuesday, Kamala Harris Town Hall. We're going to cover it for you guys. Instant analysis right afterwards on tyt.com/live. Of course, it's going to be me, John, Anna, Ida and Brooke. And so don't miss that. And I learn a lot from these. I hope you guys learn a lot from them too. So there are a couple points at some of the town halls where I go, I'm done with them, depending on the candidate,
we had or not, one of those or not. Last one.
Yes, and then finally, I want to tell you about Pluto TV. And we've gotten a bunch of comments recently that you guys are starting to watch it on there. That's fantastic. We're channel 116. You can check it out. It's built into a lot of your TVs or Pluto.tv. We're also on Zumo and Roku and YouTube TV, but Pluto now, along with the rest, is a 24-hour channel. All of our programming rolling through Pluto anytime you like. And of course, if you want to get it anytime without ads, tyt.com/join, that gets you Young Turks membership. All right, John, what's next?
Okay. It's been clear since the beginning of the Trump administration that the transgender community was very much in their sights. And this week, 2 more ways that the community was being targeted have been revealed. On Friday morning, the Department of Health and Human Services proposed a new rule that would remove anti-discrimination protections for transgender Americans from the Affordable Care Act, asserting that discrimination on the basis of sex should not include gender identity. In a press release Friday morning, the HHS said this move continues its mission to, quote, vigorously enforce prohibitions of discrimination by allowing for further discrimination that had been taken away under the Obama administration. Without this Obama-era language, healthcare workers would be free to object to performing procedures like gender reassignment surgery, and insurers would not be bound to cover all services for transgender customers. There's a great quote in defense of this move. HHS Office of Civil Rights Director Roger Severino argued that this change should not be a burden on trans Americans, as it does not forbid any medical provider from offering transgender people gender-related care, which has nothing to do with the concerns. Yes, it doesn't stop them from doing it, but it allows them to not do it. And so now, if you want to be reimbursed for
the director of civil rights at HUD under the Trump administration, that guy must be a real great guy.
Yeah. So because of Ben Carson's testimony over the last couple of days that we've been talking about, I went back and reread the story of how the Trumps were, well, basically fined. They eventually agreed to pay a fine for housing discrimination in New York. And the details of that story are pretty horrific. At the time, Trump was the president of the organization. Donald Trump was the president of the organization, and his father also obviously ran it as well. In reality, of course, his dad ran it, and the little clown man was, okay, Daddy, yeah, what are we doing against black people? That sounds great, Daddy, let's do that. So he was 27 years old at the time. So what did they do? They not only did not allow African Americans to rent in their facilities. Every time civil rights activists had to go and pretend it's a white person. They give the apartment to the white person, then they come back out and say, well, you didn't give it to the African American that came 15 minutes ago. Same apartment, same exact context, etc. And then one time, a guy, one of his managers started yelling out the N-word and N-lovers, etc. Trump later, when he was running for president in 2016, said that particular manager, when he was out in Ohio, said was a fantastic guy. Anyway, what they would, if it was a black applicant, they'd put a C on the application, C for colored, and they would reject all of them.
Yeah.
So that's why when Nando says civil rights at housing and urban development in the Trump administration, unlikely to be a position that is actually fighting for civil rights, given Trump's track record.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, it's HHS. But what you should know about Roger Severino is that he has been classified by groups that look out for the welfare of the LGBTQ community as an anti-LGBTQ radical, effectively. That's what his career has been, is targeting those people, attempting to legally define away their rights and things like that. And now he's in a position, thanks to Donald Trump, where he gets to do that and then spout off bizarre Orwellian things about continuing access to healthcare.
Yeah, when Carson was asked about it, and that's why we brought up HUD, he said he was worried about the regulatory burdens for homelessness service providers.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Actually, isn't it more regulation to say, hey, if a trans person says I am male or female, for you to then go and say, well, I don't believe you. I'm gonna need paperwork, I'm gonna need a birth certificate, I'm gonna need further proof. No, that's more regulation. The less regulation position is, you say you're a woman, great, go to the women's section.
Yeah.
No regulation at all.
And so these changes that you're talking about now in housing, we'd found out about this week. And I believe we have an updated video of Ben Carson talking about this aspect of the story.
And can you assure this committee that you will not make that HUD does not have any current or future plans to eliminate the equal access rule in rulemaking?
I'm not gonna say what we will do in the future about anything. We don't know what we're going to do in the future.
Are you currently anticipating doing that?
I'm not currently anticipating changing the rule.
And that's because I literally have no thoughts about the future right now. Yeah, so I would not be reassured if I was worried about losing access to housing in this area. And to give you an idea of how serious these sorts of changes could be, 1 in 4 transgender adults experienced some kind of housing bias in the last year, including being evicted or denied a home. 1 in 3 were homeless in their lifetime, and 1 in 8 were homeless in the last year. Those who experienced homelessness were more likely to face physical and sexual violence, as well as be forced into survival sex work. So this is not just about housing, even though if it were just about housing, that would be more than enough for us to care. It also is, at least in many cases, possibly a life and death sort of change that they're making.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine a more vulnerable sector of the society than homeless transgender people. But like as we've seen for a long time on the right, the vicious targeting of the most vulnerable is the point. Like that's kind of like what they get off on, and the effect that it has is that it forces people, like forces activists and progressives and everyone to sort of fight these all-out war on all fronts all the time. And when they can, when they're in power, they can just like say this is going away, and then that requires a huge mobilization, huge effort from activists, resources, time, effort. It's just demoralizing and dispiriting, and that's the point, right? That it just sucks out over the long term the energy to sort of fight these things over and over and over and over again.
Well, there's one other layer to that strategy that Nando is referring to, which is they find any group that is considered the other, not just by the right wing, but by some independents, because society is slow to change. And then they hyper focus on them and try to take away their rights to provoke progressives to defend them, which decent people would. People who believe in America would, because we believe you should have equal rights. And then they turn around and go, you see that? The entire Democratic Party is all about trans people. That's all they are. And before it used to be gay people, before it used to be black people. It's still Latinos, it's still Muslims. And so, especially with groups like Muslims, which have suffered tremendous propaganda against them in the press and through the right wing, etc., they get to then say they're defending Muslims, which side they're on, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that works far too well. And they go from victim to victim to victim, because they are the bad guys of history. They are. And will the press ever tell you that? They're like, no, I can't tell who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. One party has constantly been attacking different groups of Americans, trying to isolate them, demagogue against them, and take away their rights as Americans. But I can't tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are.
And honestly, in this particular case, the right really is sort of having their cake and eating their too. They're coming at this problem from multiple directions, because estimates show that LGBTQ youth comprise up to 40% of the total unaccompanied homeless youth population, even though they make up 5 to 10% of the overall youth population. So why is it that they are 4 to 8 times overrepresented? I can't say for sure, I'm not an expert, but I have a feeling it's not progressive families that are forcing out LGBTQ kids.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, why do you think those kids are out in the street? Because they have been rejected. Why? And oftentimes by their own family.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because there is demagoguery and propaganda out there saying they're the others, they're the bad ones, they're immoral, they're wrong. So a good, loving family would kick out their own son or daughter, would have them go into the streets and expose them to physical and sexual violence, and maybe ruin their lives forever. That would be the family values thing to do. But I can't tell who the good guys are and who the bad guys are. Let's have a debate where we call it 50-50. By the way, on Carson, when he said, oh, well, I can't tell the future. Hey, look, you're in charge of the department. They're asking you, what are you gonna do with the department? I can't tell the future is not a good answer. But the second part of the answer was the actual problematic one, where he said, I don't think we're gonna likely to change the policy. That's actually because he just woke up from a nap. The reality is, it turns out they are considering changing the policy. So Representative Jennifer Wexton, who had asked that question, said that he had proven himself to be deceitful and inept as a secretary and should be removed from office.
We should probably break though. When we come back, we're gonna have some on Bernie Sanders' foreign policy, and then 2 of the most high-profile bros on Twitter banned for life. We'll explain why after this.
We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. Old Turk writes in, like and share hashtag TYT live, and then goes through our stories, fake Pelosi videos, Bernie on Iran, which is coming up next. And then Laura Ingraham versus Ilhan Omar, that's the second hour. Thank you, Old Turk, we appreciate it. All of you guys, you can use hashtag TYT live to talk to us during the show. Proud to be a leftist says, I was laughing out loud while watching the Trump tongue twister mashup, and my family looked at me like I was crazy. And when I said I was watching the news, they looked even more disturbed. Well, let your family know the news can actually be fun. It is actually allowed by law. It's just no one else chooses to take advantage of that. Gabby Marita says, I would challenge someone to selectively edit video of Trump to make him sound eloquent. I'm not sure it's actually possible.
Not a bad idea.
All right, good idea as usual, Gabby. And Beppa writes in, are you surprised, Cenk? Referring to Trump, he did evict a black family out of his current home.
Oh.
Okay, that one hurt a little bit, Beppa. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, all right, but hey, if you write it on the tweeter, you go read it. Okay.
So we played two awesome mashups. There was one other mashup that I believe Vice put together that we played a section of on the damage report this morning of all the times Trump has said Bing to sort of explain
Not the
something.
search engine.
Not the search engine. It is more ridiculous than it seems. It doesn't seem like it's making any sense what I'm saying, but it is ridiculous. It's probably up on youtube.com/the damage report. Go take a look at that. And now to Sanders. Okay. Meet the Press generated a little bit of controversy earlier this week with a curiously worded tweet about Bernie Sanders saying, Bernie Sanders said he won't apologize for supporting anti-Vietnam War efforts and voting against the war in Iraq. Quote, I will do everything I can to see problems solved diplomatically instead of through war. And I read that and think, how could anyone support that man? He won't apologize for not supporting Iraq. But they put that out there. And Bernie Sanders has been criticized quite a bit on his foreign policy recently. We were talking about in the New York Times. And so perhaps because of that, Bernie Sanders put out a video explaining his approach to foreign policy, and here it is.
Recently, I've been criticized a bit because of my opposition to war and my belief that we got to do everything possible to solve international conflict without going to war. So let me be very clear. I make no apologies to anybody. That when I was a young man, before I was elected to anything, I opposed the war in Vietnam, and I know what that war did to my generation. And when I was a member of the House, I helped lead the effort against the war in Iraq, because I knew that Cheney and Bush and these other folks were lying about weapons of mass destruction.
I'm opposed to giving the president a blank check to launch a unilateral invasion and occupation of Iraq, and why I will vote against this resolution.
And that war and that vote was the worst foreign policy blunder in the modern history of the United States. And as a senator, I'm proud that I helped for the first time in 45 years to utilize the War Powers Act to get the United States out of an unauthorized war in Yemen. Unfortunately, after passing in the House and the Senate, Trump vetoed that legislation. And I'll tell you something, that right now, I'm going to do everything that I can to prevent a war with Iran. Because if you think the war in Iraq was a disaster, my guess is that the war in Iran would be even worse. So let's work together and prevent that war. If people want to criticize me for that, go for it, that's okay. I don't apologize to anybody. Thank you.
Damn. That's a gangster role right there. Okay, I like the beat in the background. I like how he's talking softly, like
it's all the haters.
I don't have to talk loud to get my message across. And that is a very long hallway.
It's actually just a circle.
So look, to be fair to Meet the Press, that was a tweet. In the actual interview, I went back and looked. Chuck Todd does bring up something that is, potentially in their minds damaging to Bernie Sanders, but he didn't frame it as a "will you apologize for being right about Vietnam and Iraq." He said they're going to bring up all these times that you went abroad and argued against some of America's interventions. And they're gonna throw the hammer and sickle thing at you. Now that's a different problem, and I wanna address that in a second as well. But the tweet from Meet the Press framed it as he didn't apologize for Vietnam and Iraq. And of course on that, and partly based on what Bernie Sanders had said in his answer, but of course on that, I mean, only in Washington would that even be a question, right? But right now, Bernie Sanders is second place in the Democratic primaries. In first place is a guy who should apologize, because Joe Biden voted for that Iraq war. And oftentimes people like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and John Kerry and others will say, well, I mean, there was nothing we could do. No, there was a lot you could do. A lot of Democrats voted no. This was the thing that Bernie Sanders was actually not alone on. He was alone on a lot of the votes that he was 100% right about and has been proven by history to be right about. But on this one, a lot of Democrats voted no on Iraq war, including Bernie Sanders. Biden thought it would help his career to vote yes. So Meet the Press should actually ask him if he apologizes for that. Because right now, even Meet the Press, I think, would acknowledge that the Iraq war was an absolute disaster. And so a lot of times, this is just like exact replay of Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders in this sense. People say, well, Hillary Clinton's got a lot of experience. A lot of experience getting things wrong. Joe Biden has a lot of experience getting things wrong, whether it's domestic policy on the bankruptcy bill and so many other things, but also foreign policy like the Iraq war. So on the issue of hammer and sickle, like, you old commie, I can't believe you supported democracy in Nicaragua when we had sent the death squads. Why didn't you back American death squads? I'm pretty sure he doesn't have to apologize for that either.
Yeah, the United States history in Central America in the 1980s is arguably one of the more shameful, horrible chapters in our history out of any of them, and there's plenty. And Bernie Sanders' opposition to that, which again, I mean, was quite courageous at the time, given just how much pressure there was to sort of fall in line on that. That's only something to be celebrated. And it's interesting because he's gonna force a debate on foreign policy that hasn't been had in a Democratic primary in a long time. I mean, I still remember like that great moment in his debate against Hillary Clinton when he says, Henry Kissinger is not my friend, and I don't want to be his friend, or whatever. Like if he can force that issue, if he can force that issue against Biden specifically, but even like all these other Democratic candidates who probably don't really have a very developed position on any of this stuff. I think it could be. I think it would ultimately, in the long run, be a very good thing, not just for him, but I think for all of us.
And I'm glad that he combines two things in that answer. One, he showcases that for literally decades he has been consistent in opposing unnecessary wars, both as an outsider to politics and someone whose political future could have been ruined if he'd been wrong there. He was bold and honest and authentic in that. But he also pointed out why I think, at least right now, he has the best claim to being the one who is running as an anti-war candidate, because a lot of the candidates won't even speak out against these conflicts. They won't even match that low bar. Some will and are saying the right things, and they're moving us in the right direction. But Bernie Sanders, along with Ro Khanna and a few others, put their time and energy and political capital into trying to get us out of the Yemen conflict. A conflict that the vast majority of the people in the American media don't care about, don't talk about. There was almost no upside to that, but he actually did it. It wasn't just talk, it was action, and it required Trump's only second veto ever to stop that from going through.
It's one of the most remarkable votes I've ever seen in Congress and Senate in my life, and Bernie somehow pulled it off. I don't really know what he did to pressure these guys to vote against the war in Yemen, because it's like you said, it's not like there's a big popular movement to oppose the war in Yemen.
There's virtually no
nothing.
movement.
So the fact that, it goes against the criticism that there's often of Bernie, of that he's so idealistic, that he doesn't know how government actually works and how to actually govern if you're in power and things like that. Like, he's showing that he actually can move the needle on this kind of thing, because I can't think of a more remarkable vote in my life.
Yeah. So I want to say one more thing about Bernie on the issue of war. I know the mainstream media generally doesn't care about policy and doesn't care about who's right and who's wrong, but that is kind of what we're voting on. So they say we're biased in favor of Bernie. Now let's think about that for a second. Why? Okay, as I've said this 1,000 times, he's not our uncle. If he was,
he doesn't pay you guys.
Yeah, if he was for the wars, we'd be against him.
You can pay me. I'll keep supporting him.
Yeah. And so here's a guy who has a track record for 40 years of being right and being opposed to the wars that were disasters. That matters. That matters. Why does it matter? Because when he's president, then he might be opposed to another dumb war. Joe Biden has a history of being in favor of dumb wars. That matters. Am I positive that Joe Biden is not going to get us into a war with Iran? No, I am not positive. Am I positive Bernie Sanders is not going to get us into one? Yes, I am positive. By the way, I think Elizabeth Warren is a fantastic candidate. She has a lot of great detailed policy positions, and I've supported her throughout this entire campaign. But she's not anywhere near as good as Bernie Sanders on this issue.
No.
So on wars, not only is Bernie Sanders better today, but he's also proven that he could be trusted. And so if you don't want a disastrous war, there is one candidate that stands head and shoulders above the rest. I don't say that because I'm biased in favor of Bernie Sanders. I say that because I'm biased in favor of facts.
Yeah. And it's arguably where the president has the most leeway and most power to actually act unilaterally is in matters of foreign affairs, right? I mean, like, will he be able to pass Medicare for all if he wins? I mean, it's hard. It's going to be, but like he could do so much to sort of rein in, aggressive American foreign policy just by the fact that he's the president, he's in power.
Yeah.
So that's why foreign policy is just so important to any presidential campaign.
Absolutely. All right,
one more story?
Yep.
Okay. Prominent hashtag resistance bros Ed and Brian Krasenstein have been banned from Twitter for life, actually, for quote, operating multiple fake accounts and purchasing account interactions. I would give you more details, but I don't have any. So it sounds like they were using accounts, sort of sock puppet accounts.
Nancy Pelosi,
you got it.
Oh no, don't edit that together. Oh no. And also account interactions, which could be likes or retweets or comments or whatever. I don't think it directly says that they're buying followers. I wouldn't rule it out though. If you're not familiar with the Krasenstein brothers, I envy you. No, but also you've probably come across them. They're not breaking laws, they're not Jacob Wohl, they're not the worst people in the world, but they were annoying and kind of shallow on Twitter, and they would reply to everything that Donald Trump put out there. And yeah, so I want to show a little bit about the argument for why they needed to be removed, and then also an image that I know Nando is excited about.
Yes.
That was, I think, Pete Krasenstein.
Yes.
So Twitter says the Twitter rules apply to everyone. Operating multiple fake accounts and purchasing account interactions are strictly prohibited. Engaging in these behaviors will result in permanent suspension from the service. If you want to maintain a Twitter presence, you can't do this sort of stuff. You can advocate for Nazi policies. You just can't do this sort of stuff if you want to stay on Twitter.
I've got to jump in there. I love that rule. They say they're going to apply it to everybody. Can't wait. So here's what I want you to investigate. All of the political campaigns, the Democratic ones and the Republican ones, because I would be shocked if they were not using multiple fake accounts and purchasing account interactions. And you say that'll result in a permanent suspension. You're really going to do a permanent suspension of Donald Trump's campaign? Are you going to do a permanent suspension of Joe Biden's campaign if it turns out they're using sock puppets and these things? Look, I see it every day. You can tell a clear pattern of bots when you see one. They'll quote the same articles that are from a long time ago that no actual human has access to at the tip of their fingers. They'll say similar things. I've seen it a million times, and the campaigns definitely use them. So Twitter, I'm challenging you to investigate Democratic and Republican campaigns. So if you really mean it, because I'm not sure I believe you. I think that you are doing this. You had to act on some of the outrageous things that the right wing was doing. Then you had to find a left wing, anyone to ban on the left wing so you could say you're neutral. But I don't think you actually want to challenge power. And I don't think you want to actually apply these rules to everybody, because if you did, you'd probably have to ban at least half the campaigns from Twitter.
Yeah.
Keep it real, and I'd love for them to answer, are they investigating the campaigns or are they not? Because I'd be shocked if the campaigns weren't using bots.
Yeah. So they have responded saying, Twitter claims that we manipulated our interactions through the purchase of fake accounts and fake interactions. We have never once acquired anything for the purpose of increasing our Twitter presence. The Krasensteins say they only operated secondary accounts on Twitter to monitor death threats, as well as accounts for their businesses. And honestly, I'm sure that they were purchasing various things, but I also think that they just had a lot of followers because there is a big market for sort of shallow anti-Trump commentary. Like you can get people to follow you, and in fact, they had a lot of followers. Ed Krasenstein, that's funny, we'll get to that in a second. Ed Krasenstein had roughly 925,000 followers before he was banned, while Brian Krasenstein had more than 697,000 followers. And look, I'm a person, I care about the environment, I care about animals, I care about endangered species, and the Krasensteins are now endangered on Twitter. We've lost 2, we're just left with Kenny Klippenstein. Noted Krasenstein. And it's sad. He's only at 113,000 followers. He's the least successful of the Krasensteins. So go follow Ken Klippenstein on Twitter, he's a great reporter.
So the reason we're joking around about that is for what, I guess because the names are somewhat similar. People often confuse Ken, who is our senior investigative reporter for the Krasensteins, and he's like, I'm not a Krasenstein.
Yeah, but even the Krasensteins joke about him being a Krasenstein, which I don't know.
I'm not convinced he's not a Krasenstein. I need to see the facts. I still haven't. I haven't seen the natural birth certificate.
And Twitter, please don't accidentally ban him. He's a real reporter.
I have not seen any confirmation that he's not one of the Krasensteins' fake accounts.
Yeah, he could be. He could be just.
Then
a
he's
bot.
doing great reporting. Then they're doing great reporting, and I didn't know it.
I want to show you one more thing because I want to make clear that so they've been banned. I have been annoyed with them historically.
Really, I couldn't tell.
But they're by far not the worst people in American politics. I'm not trying to make that case. However, they have done a few things that stand out as a little bit odd. If you've listened to their podcast, it's something. And then they also they have done something that I have not been able to successfully do, is actually finish and publish a book. So Ed Krasenstein had tweeted this after some criticism of an image in their kids' book. I love how people are trying to attack at Krasenstein and I for including a muscular superhero in our kids' book, saying it's a quote fetish picture book. I guess it's wrong for the Hulk, He-Man, and Ninja Turtles to all be muscular heroes too. Check it out. And yes, that's Robert Mueller because it's that sort of book.
Outfit. Yeah, it's Robert Mueller in a Chippendales outfit.
In their defense, he often does not wear shirts while conducting business.
Yeah, and he's yoked. It's fine, but it's just. I mean, that's what they did. They just it was liberal wish fulfillment, right?
Yes.
Is what they were operating on, just taking advantage of people's trauma that Trump won the election. It's a little gross. It's not the worst thing in the world. Again, they're not Nazis, but it's kind of funny to see them banned.
Yeah, look, since I don't know the Krasensteins, sorry that they'll probably take greatest offense at that as opposed to what these two said. Okay, but I'm not offended. I don't know them. I'm not offended by that. I find that to be funny. So why does that bother you guys so much? I don't get it.
Because it's like he said, it's the wish for. It's just like the thing that bothers me the most in media and social media is that there's a particular talent that some people have. It is to identify out there a hunger. A deep hunger for a specific thing, and they exploit that for money. And I'm not even talking specifically about the Krasensteins. That's something that people do now. Jacob Wohl is an example of that. All of the anonymous 40-year-old blondes who respond to Donald Trump and get hundreds of thousands of followers have identified that. If I say this thing, if I produce this thing, people will give my Patreon money. And that image of Robert Mueller is peak liberal wish fulfillment. And I get it. I watch Stephen Colbert sometimes, it's funny. It's detached from reality for the most part. It's liberal wish fulfillment. I get why people want it. And they have monetized that up until now better than the vast majority of people.
All right, but I gotta say, I don't want false equivalency though. I mean, we mentioned Jacob Wohl. Jacob Wohl is a monster and a clown.
Yes.
Okay, Krasensteins do tweets you don't love. Okay, those are not similar.
They're ultimately harmless. They're
ultimately harmless.
And it's not Klippenstein.
Ken Klippenstein may be the biggest victim out of all of this.
The ironic thing is the only person who's actually qualified to identify as if he's a Krasenstein would be Kenny Klippenstein, who's a great investigative reporter.
Yeah, and last thing
he's
is,
biased though.
Look, the Krasensteins say we didn't do it. We didn't do these things that Twitter says we did. I have no idea who's telling the truth on that.
True.
So, if they have evidence, because I don't put it past any establishment organization at this point, Twitter, because of its size, et cetera, is in a sense, to do false equivalency on their own and to go, well, since the right wing are monsters, but they yell at us, we have to have a sacrificial lamb on the left wing side. So I don't know, because I don't have access to the facts and information, and Twitter did not make them public, whether they actually did do these things and should be banned, or if they're sacrificial lambs. I don't know.
It's probably a bit of both.
I think it's a bit of both. Yes.
Okay, but you guys don't know either. Okay, all right.
That has never stopped me before.
Okay, all right, guys. So we got to take a quick break. Thank you, guys. Everybody, check out Damage Report. Thank you for joining us, Nando. We got a very powerful second power panel: Laura Ingraham versus Ilhan Omar when we return. Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.